I need to replace this cabinet because it's just in the way. It's a bad use of space. So I'm going to save the drawers. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lower half and an upper half because this just gets in the way whenever I have large boards to move around in the shop. And you can see in SketchUp what I'm going to be building, the upper and lower cabinets. I kick off by cutting down some plywood. For this I'm going to be using some 18mm birch plywood, which I think is 3/4 inch. And I'll just be cutting most of that up here, and then I'm going to move over to my table saw and refine those cuts. Once I've got all the pieces cut, I label everything so that I don't get confused. And I go ahead and cut all of the pocket holes. I'm going to pre-paint everything before I start assembling, and before I do that though, I'm going to mark off the areas where I'm going to apply glue and where the joints for the pocket holes are going to come together, and I'll tape those off. I need a way to align the center panel in the cabinet, and to do this I'm going to be using dominoes. You could also use dowels, or you could just cut some plywood and use that as a spacer to align that. In this case I really like the dominoes because it holds it nice and secure. And now it's time to break down the old cabinet because I need to take out all of the drawer runners and then move those over to the new cabinet. After using my flush cut saw and my jigsaw and a few other tools and hammers to get this thing apart, I finally got all of the pieces apart and off to the side. And then I could start taking off the thousands of slotted screws that hold together all of these runners. I cut a strip of plywood out of scrap and used that as a spacer to reapply all of these nice oak runners. I didn't go out and buy new screws. I went ahead and used all of the slotted screws. They were a little bit rusty. I just cleaned them up with some steel wool, and I think they turned out pretty good. And now it's time to assemble the cabinet. I have this giant clamp that I use whenever I'm putting together cabinets, and this holds everything nice and tight, and it keeps that panel from moving when I start putting in the screws for the pocket holes. And now I start applying some glue to the middle panel. I don't really use any glue for those dominoes. I don't think it's necessary. They're not in there for strength. They're really only there to help align that middle panel while I assemble the rest of the cabinet. And now I just put in the two strips on the back, one in the bottom and one on the top. In addition to the pocket holes on either ends of those strips on the back, I also pre-drill and put a couple of screws right into that middle panel. And now it's time for some lunch. After lunch I apply the wheels on the bottom. I've got 4 wheels for the bottom. I inset them a bit so that they don't hit the wall and prevent the cabinet from moving. To cover the top of my new cabinet, I want to use some laminate like Formica, and if I lived in the US still, I could find Formica anywhere and purchase it for relatively inexpensive, and just use some contact cement, apply it to both sides, and be done with it. And I know how that works. Here in Switzerland, though, it's pretty difficult to find this stuff. Formica is really expensive. Enough Formica to cover this small cabinet would probably be around 200 Swiss francs, which is about $200. That's really ridiculous. So what I did find, though, is this high-pressure laminate. The challenge with it is it's 3 millimeters thick, so it doesn't really bend. So when you put contact cement on it, which by the way works, I tried a piece out and it's really on there. When you put the contact cement down, normally with laminate or Formica, you would sticker it first, put sticks in between, and then you take the sticks out slowly and sort of roll it from the middle. Because this is so thick, it's really stiff, that's pretty difficult to do. Before I put that laminate on the top, I'm going to go ahead and put some oak trim all around the edges. That'll also give me something to put the knife hinges into rather than right into the plywood. I apply contact cement to both sides, the plywood and the laminate. And out of habit, I went ahead and did put some sticks in between and slowly pulled them out. I don't really think this helped at all because that stuff is really, really stiff. It stuck quite nicely and I didn't see any gaps or bubbles form underneath it anyways. And I just used a flush trim bit to trim that laminate right up to the edge of the plywood, and that worked really nicely. Now this is my first time using knife hinges, so to do that I just laid it out with a pencil and marked it with a knife, and then I just got out most of the material with my router and went back with the chisel to clean it up. And it's a pretty nice fit. So the top is just sitting on top of the carcass at the moment, and you'll remember that there's these two slats that go across the carcass, and what I'm going to do is I've made these two pieces of wood that will just go up underneath between those two slats, and I'll attach that to the top, and that'll keep the top positioned horizontally on the base. What it won't do is it won't keep the top from popping off. So if I see that the top is coming off, then I can just pretty easily put a couple of figure eights on there. Not because I think that plywood's going to move, but just it's the easiest thing to attach the top and keep it at position. And I can still take it off if I ever have to do something in here. To put the knife hinges into the doors, it's pretty much the same as the previous process. I mark it out with a knife and route it, and then I go back with a chisel to clean it up and go right up to my knife marks. When I first put the door in, as you can see, it doesn't close very nicely and it's sticking a little bit. So what I do is I apply my pencil on the bottom where I think it's actually rubbing, and I rub my pencil all the way along the edge first and then close the cabinet a few times, take the door off, and you can see exactly where it rubs, because the pencil rubs off onto the other side of the cabinet. Then I can just take it over to my bench and take a little bit off with my block plane. And now we've got a pretty good fit. I decided to reuse all of the little drawers that were in the old cabinet. I went ahead and painted the faces all blue and part of the edges, and then I found these on Amazon. They're little name plates, and I made a little jig to space them evenly, and then I can go ahead and install all of these into the cabinet. The upper cabinet is really not much different from the lower cabinet, except obviously the top doesn't come off. And on the back I've got a French cleat, and I've applied that already to the wall. I do a quick little hang test here to make sure it's in there good and solid, and I will very carefully lift this thing up and see if I can get it up on the wall. French cleats definitely make it easier to hang cabinets up there. I don't even think I'm going to put a screw through the back of this thing to keep it from moving. It's pretty heavy. I don't think it's going anywhere. And there we go. I hope that gave you a few ideas. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and liking.